We have few better examples of someone on a desperate mission to find themselves than social media influencer Ollie London.
I don't identify as British, so, I've transitioned to a non-binary person. I'm non-binary now, so I can be addressed as they, them, Korean, or Jimin. So they/them/Jimin/Korean.
Born a white man, Ollie has had 32 plastic surgeries totaling more than $300,000 in an attempt to find true happiness by transitioning into a Korean woman, since that's what he believed to be his true identity deep down inside.
Hey guys, I'm finally Korean. I've transitioned. I'm so happy I've completed my look. I'm finally Korean, guys. I have the eyes.
But more recently, Ollie claims to have found God and now identifies as a Christian man, which we'll come back to here in just a bit. But one of the fundamental reasons for why Ollie has struggled so hard to find happiness is because he's trying to find it in the same way that culture tells us that we should find our happiness. And that's by first looking inside and finding ourselves. But the fact is, not even too long ago, people would find their identity by looking to their family name or their work rather than by looking inside to their inner world.
Doyle rule!
But today we're told that the way that we find our truest selves is by looking inside, but when we do look inside, what we end up finding isn't even our truest selves at all. We're only made to believe that it is. The reason why becomes clearer if we spend enough time looking into our hearts. What we'll find is that we have all kinds of feelings and desires and intuitions that are always in conflict with one another, which makes it impossible to actualize all of them.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
For example, you might have a desire to maintain total independence, but also have a desire to be married. You might have a desire to want to stay in shape and also one to eat without limits. And the list goes on. The point is, we'll always have these competing desires and feelings and intuitions that all can't be actualized at the same time in the name of our truest selves. So how then are we supposed to know which ones are more us and which ones aren't? Well, when it comes to identity, it's not us, but it's actually culture that tells us which desires are our truest selves and which ones aren't. Tim Keller illustrates this point in one of his books this way. He says, imagine an Anglo-Saxon warrior in Britain AD 800. He looks into his heart and he sees two strong inner impulses and feelings. One is aggression. When people show him any disrespect, his natural response is to respond violently, either to harm or to kill. He enjoys battle. Now, living in a shame and honor culture with a warrior ethic, he will identify with that feeling. He will feel no shame or regret over it. He will say, that's me. That's who I am. I will express that. But let's say that the other impulse he sees in his heart is same-sex attraction. He wishes that were not there. He would look at that feeling and say, that's not me. I will control and suppress that. Now come forward to today. Imagine a young man walking around Manhattan. He has the same two impulses, both equally strong. What will he say to himself? He will look at the aggression and say, this is not who I am, and will go to therapy or some anger management programs. He will look at his sexual desire, however, and conclude, this is who I am. That's me. So the point is, although we like to think that we're the ones who decide who we really are, in reality, it's actually our culture that tells us who we are. By looking inside, we're not really figuring out who we are, but we're figuring out who culture says that we are. Not only is the idea of finding ourselves by looking inside something that's unique to our culture today, but also the types of desires that we're told are truly us also come from our current culture. This becomes even more evident when we think about Ollie's situation. Culture tells us that it's okay to identify as a woman or non-binary, but it's not okay to identify as Korean. We're told which ones are truly us and which ones aren't. But according to Ollie, this approach didn't ultimately work. He claimed that he was initially happy while he was transitioning, but that it was only temporary happiness.
Really living as a Korean woman for the last 6 months, and it gave me so much happiness, it gave me so much confidence, but I just didn't feel right the whole time. I felt really good at the start. So many people gave me compliments, so many people saying, wow, you actually look better as a woman. So I was thinking, okay, I do look better, I look more Korean this way. So I was thinking, I'm happy. But I realized it's only temporary happiness.
He now says that he's thankful that he didn't go through with the bottom surgery to complete his transition, and now claims to identify as a Christian man.
And I was actually, as you guys know, I had surgery to look more feminine. I was planning to go to Bangkok in Thailand to have the breast surgery and to have penis reduction surgery in Bangkok. But I've actually, thank goodness, I've realized not to do that, because that would have been something I really, really regret.
When asked about what changed that for him, he said this.
Now, on your YouTube channel, you said that living as a Korean woman brought you so much happiness, but that changed. What happened?
I actually started going to church 3 months ago. I go several times a week now. I've been reading the Bible. I've been learning online, watching YouTube videos about the teachings of Jesus. And that has actually really helped me with my detransition. It's made me realize, God made me the way he did. I should just stick with who I am, be who I am, and just find happiness.
Right. And you've actually, had a lot of experience with that. I mean, I've learned that you had 32 plastic surgeries that total about $300,000, and you were really close to actually getting surgery to transition your gender, but that all changed.
So yeah, I was actually going to go to Bangkok, Thailand, and undergo these gender reassignment surgeries. But I was going to church, and I was thinking, why am I doing this? What's the reason behind this? God made me the way I am. I shouldn't be chasing this. It's not right.
Now, to be clear, I don't know Ollie's heart, and given his history of changing his identity so frequently, only time will tell if his new identity in Christ will stick this time. I also don't know why, even though he no longer identifies as a woman, he apparently continues to identify as Korean, which he obviously isn't.
And I was born in the wrong body, but I was born in the British body when it should have been Korean. But I've come to realize I don't want to be a woman. I am living as a Korean man again. So pronouns he, him, Korean.
So I don't know exactly where his head is at and how things will change in the future for him. But one thing that I do know is that if he does truly find his identity in Christ, then he can finally have a stable identity that won't change as he changes or as his inner feelings and desires change.
I've never been happy with who I am. I've always had issues in terms of my looks, my appearance, self-esteem issues. As you guys know, I'm always confused about how I identify. Some days I wake up as Jimin, some days I wake up as Rose from Blackpink.
My ultimate goal is to look like Jimin, my idol from BTS. I've spent about $150,000 to perfect my image.
I've been very unhappy with who I am deep down for the last 8 years, and I've had like 18 plastic surgeries now. I like to change it up. Some days I was being a man, some days I was being a woman, but I've come to realize that actually I am a man. And I want to stay as a man. Well, I still hadn't achieved happiness. So I thought maybe I should be a trans woman. Maybe that's why I'm unhappy. So, I was trans for 6 months. I had the facial feminization surgery. I had 11 procedures.
Suddenly, what Jesus said seems to make a lot more sense now in light of Ollie's situation. In the book of Matthew, Jesus said, "Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." Something interesting about this statement is that the Greek word for life that's used in that verse is where we get our word psyche from. So one possible way to understand what Jesus is saying here can relate to how we understand our personal identity. In this way, Jesus would be saying, whoever finds their identity will lose it, since it would be based on something temporary and that's culturally created. But whoever loses their identity for my sake will find it, meaning that they'll find who they were created to be all along. As Christians, we believe that it's only when we find our identity in Christ that we'll have a stable identity and a sense of self-worth that won't be vulnerable to being crushed. And to see a really good example of this, we can look to a world-famous model who had her sense of self-worth devastated as she got older. Go ahead and click on this video to see what I mean, and we'll see you over there. But the next time that you find yourself finding your identity in all of the wrong places, what are you gonna say? What do you mean?